Okie dokie. So I've taken the music volume down so that hopefully you can hear me through my microphone. If I'll type this out too. Oh my goodness, my computer is so slow right now. What's happening? If my audio levels are weird, just let me know. It's been 2 weeks since the last time I streamed because it was a holiday and we had stuff happening last week. And this particular tank I've been making and streaming is a thing that I've just been working on stream, so it seems like I haven't been working a lot, but that's just because the stuff I stream is I just reserved for streaming. So there's other stuff happening in the background, but for this tank specifically, this is where we left off last week. So you can see we modeled and rigged these back legs. And normally you would just, by the way, you'd model everything, but I have this sort of modular system where I can make a bunch of mini bosses out of the same parts. So I try and build everything in parts. So we have the turret, we have the chassis, we have the back legs, and we have the front legs. Now if we look at, I can pull this up, my derpy little concept sketch here, the front legs are actually different than the back legs. They're kind of cut off on the front here. The wheel enclosure is a little bit different as well. And I think it also, I don't know if I want to have as big of bolts on these sides. So the two things art-wise that we still need to do for the 3D modeling part of it is I need to remodel these front legs so that they're a little bit different. And then we still need to model this chassis part, which includes basically a main armored section, an undercarriage that all the legs attach to, a sort of enclosure that the turret plugs into, this little front part here that I imagine is kind of a sensor array that's a little more close to the ground. And then there's these big ammo / fuel packs in the back, which I may want to mount on little spherical kind of ball joint hemisphere brackets, just so that they have a little bit of movement, secondary movement as well. But you can see I started with this basically functional. I'm going to jump into the scene. So as I add these parts, I can replace my placeholder parts with the other ones, and then we can update all of the behavior as well. I think maybe that music's still a little loud. We'll take that down. Or maybe that's too quiet. So yeah, those are the two parts we have left. I think it'll probably be fastest if I just take this back leg mesh and just modify it to make the front leg. That'll be pretty quick, and then we can get started on the main chassis part, which I mean I think I've gotten a little bit faster as I've worked, but I could probably be a little faster about. And then basically the main art tasks once that's finished is just I've been teaching myself Adobe Substance Painter, which basically lets me do stuff add normal maps that bevel some parts of this so that it doesn't look so low poly, and also lets me do some procedural stuff based on adding AO and other wear on the edges and things that'll just make it, I'm not shooting for realism, but I think it will cross the boundary from this looks you know, a really basic 3D asset to oh yeah, this is a pretty higher quality nicer thing. But still reading manuals, still doing tutorials. So I don't think I'm ready to stream on that stuff. But In the meantime, we can pop over. Here we are in Blender, and as always seems to be the case with Blender, I like step away from it for 2 weeks and then I forget everything. So we'll all get to enjoy not just me working in Blender, but me remembering how the hell do you Blender. You can see I did do a little bit of work other than just rigging this back leg up, like after the stream last time, to basically clean up the topology on this like cover, and then like to add basically like sort of like inset circle geo around all like where it intersects these like bolts, so that like they're intersecting at a plane and it doesn't create any like weird intersections or anything, right? I did that down here too. So, right, you have this sort of more circular part that's been like cut in and pops out. And then if we just like go in here, oh my goodness, like these faces, boop, 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 we're all flattened out to be perfectly planar, so that we had a nice intersection. I think I can go to, right now, what is it? We have vertex group weights enabled. I can turn those off. You can see some other stuff I did. These red lines here, those are like creases, which basically means like, this is like a little more obvious here, but were they creases? No, those aren't creases. Those are UV seams. That's from when I UV unmapped this, which is basically just, if I go to like UV editing, you see we took all of these guys and we like flattened them out, kind of like stretching them onto a canvas, and that's like not super important for the way I color them, because I actually use a second UV map called palette map, which I use to, oh my goodness. Here, we'll get out of here, we'll come in here. So you can see I have a second UV map palette map, which just lets me pick a color. And so that's what I use for the like base colors. I just have these like basically palette options, and I actually have multiple maps, right? So that like there's some metallic ones and there's some dull ones, and then there's this like shining red one, and just in the shading, right, that shining red one is actually plugged into like an emissive channel. So if we actually like go back here and I show like the turret, you can see they're actually like emissive, right? So, and then like these metal parts are like a little more dull and these parts are a little more shiny. That's just from like a gloss map that I also make, right? And that just works because all the palettes are like arranged together. So the same UVs are saying I want this color and I want this PBR and I want this emissive. Anyway, so what I think we want to do is basically duplicate this back leg. We want to shrink it down, because I'm pretty sure that in the engine I shrunk it down by default. Although maybe it's fine to just leave it and like, yeah, because it's only 80% like actually in the scene in the engine. But maybe that's fine for now. Like I can just, because I know I'm going to be like using these front legs and other meshes and they're going to get scaled anyway. So maybe it's fine that they're all about the same size. But I think the other thing, just like looking at this, is that like these back legs, like they come down, they come up, and then they go down, and they're like resting pose. Whereas I think these front legs, like it's like a little more gentle of an angle by default. So I think one thing I want to do is come in here, and I just want to like pivot all these pieces out a little bit. And then I need to basically take this part right here, right, and change the top of it, change the bottom of it, and make these like bolts like a little bit smaller, right? because I think like I want these bolts to be like much smaller, and I think these ones can be a little bit smaller. And then this front part, you basically don't ever want it like blocking the turret, sort of, like if it's like aiming down or something, so that's why they would be like cut off on the tops. So hopefully that's not too onerous. So we'll start by, how do I do this? I want to duplicate a group. So I think I can like, can I just Shift D? Okay, I've got a new one now. And then what is it? GG, or is it Alt G to snap you back to the origin? We can make a new collection here. I'll call this front leg parts. Move it all down here. I think what we want to do is take all of these, move those objects, and also like, oh, I guess they're showing up as gray here because they're still parented. So it should be Alt P to clear the parents. Then I can get rid of this back leg rig, which we don't need for now, and then we can hide this front leg parts. And so now we just have our new back leg copy. And it added this like .001 to all the names. That's because like every single object in Blender needs to have a unique name. So when you duplicate something, it just like tags a number onto the end of it to ensure that it has a different name. I think this is basically fine for now, right? Like, I don't think it hurts anything to have .001 on all of that, so I think I'll just leave that be. But I think the first thing we want to do is I'll hit 3 on the keyboard and then 9 so that we can like look at it from the right hand side. I think what we want to do is like select everything that is like off other than the like ball right here. Then I can hit period to say I want to rotate, like pivot around the 3D cursor, which right now is at the origin. And then I can basically just rotate all that up. Then we can select this dingus. I can say Shift S. We want cursor to selected. That moves the 3D cursor to the center of that ball joint. So now we're rotating around that point. I can box select everything, and then I can Shift unselect that object. Now I press R, and we can flatten this part out a little bit. And we select here, Shift S2 to move it again. Box select everything, unselect the sphere, rotate again. And now we have, I think we basically want it like that. So Shift Z switches you between the shaded view and the wireframe view. I needed to do that because like if I just box select like this, I'm not going to get all the parts that are inside. Whereas if I box select like this, I get all the parts that are inside as well. So that's like a pretty handy tip. You know what? I think I just realized I didn't actually tweet that I'm live. Let's do that. I'm so good at social media. Quote post. We're live. Quote post. We're live. Go to the Discord. Also, I think I need to change the name of this stream. Whoops. Well, hopefully that gets applied. If not, the number will just be wrong while we're live, and then I'll edit it later. So now what we've done is we've got this sort of, we've moved it just a little bit, so that's like pointed forward a little bit more. I think the next thing I want to do is actually kind of want to shorten this part right here a little bit. So I'm just going to go in and we'll go back to using the median point. I'm also using local. So when I modeled this, all these objects were like aligned to the to like the bone, or like to the segment that they're part of, so that I could just use the blue axis, the z-axis, to move up and down. I can also just like come in here and use that z-axis, like SZ, to change to like scale things along the bone as well. So we'll come in here, and I think this can probably, let's see, let's select all these parts. We'll move you in. We'll select these parts. We'll move you in. Yeah, I was also thinking more about how all these mechanical fixtures like fit together, and I realized in hindsight that like having two like beams that come in like this is like not actually what you would want. Like you would want like C bracket and then one that comes like this, so that it swings like this and it swings like this. Whoops. So this model that I made is not actually mechanically sound, but you know, I think my strategy is like always go forward, don't look back. Just be like, okay, well, that's how this model works, and the next time I'll be like a little more clever. One sec, let me boop boop boop. What's being said here? Okay. So yeah, now we've got this sort of stretching a little bit. Now we got to move this ball in. So actually, I think we want to grab everything from that ball and below. We'll actually tab out. How are we going to do this? Okay, annoyingly, this dingus is not aligned. So what should I do? I think I just want to like rotate it so that it is aligned. Wait, are we still in? Okay, we're in medium point mode. Why is it not? Is it like a bit off center? I guess it is. It's very strange. Anyway, I'm not going to think too deeply about that. We're just going to grab all this stuff. And then I'm just going to eyeball it. We're just going to go. Hopefully that's good. And then for this part, let's just, I think what I want to do is, I want to select all these inside faces and delete them. And then I only want to work on that outside part. And then I can just solidify it again later. But I think I also just want to make this like shorter in general. So like go into this dingus, move this up, whoop, and select this ring, move it up. We can select this dingus, move it up. Then we're going to want to grab the wheel in this chassis and like it like that. Is that? Oh, that's too high. We can sort of go down a little bit. That's good. And then, yeah, so we're going to grab this shell here. I'm going to hit backslash. Or I guess that's just number pad /. Zoop, zoop. Oh my goodness, I have too many. Great. So yeah, you can hit / on the numpad, and that like isolates it so that you're only looking at one thing. And then when I'm selecting parts in here, I want to go face select, and you can say L. L means select linked. So like every face and every face that's touching the face that my mouse is over, and every face that's touching a face that's touching, etc., right? It just sort of propagates out until everything that's connected is touching. But I can actually say seam in the select linked like refinement options that pop up, and that means I'm only selecting the faces that are connected in the UV map, right? So when it was unwrapped, we like cut it in certain places, right? So, now I'm only selecting those parts, right? The ones that are like sort of cut along these sort of more like bold red lines. So I can like continue hitting L, and like the way that works is that it will always add to the selection. So I can say L, 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 L. You can see we're just getting rid of all these back and side faces. Get this stuff on the bottom. Great. So now we've selected everything except that front part. And so I'm going to say X, delete faces. Now they're gone. I think I'm wondering. Now I'm wondering if I should do that. Wait, I'm going to undo. Because like if I use solidify, it's going to copy this geometry on the inside there, and like that's kind of annoying. I guess it's not that annoying because I'll just delete it, right? Yeah, I think that should be fine actually. So let's just let's get rid of those faces. And then I know these faces up on the top here. I selected across by picking the first one and then hitting Control and clicking the second one. Control means I want to connect basically the shortest path, right, of connected faces from the front to the side. So I'm going to hit X, I can delete faces, and now we've got a kind of stubbier one. If we look back here, I kind of did it asymmetrically. I don't know if that's going to be annoying or not. I guess it's not that annoying. I just like need to scale it by -1, like mirror it in the engine, which you get varying support for mirroring with scale across different engines, but I think generally speaking, Unreal is pretty good about it. It's just a little bit wonky when you're doing like coordinate changes to realize that like your local coordinates have like swapped the handedness, right? And right is left. But I think that should be fine. I think I'm actually already doing that in some other places. So we'll just model the right-handed one here. This is on the left, but it's facing us. So if we were facing the direction of the tank, that would be on our right. So we want to cut this notch out, looking from the front on the right-hand side. So I think I can just heal those faces. And then we're gonna press 2 so that I can select edges. And I'm gonna press GG to slide edges along faces. That lets us bring that down there. And then okay, that's kind of annoying, but we just want to grab this. I think I want to go into orthographic mode. Why is there some kind of snapping enabled? Why is it? That's weird, right? Like it should be that I'm just, why is it only moving it along that axis? I'm going crazy. This is what happens in Blender. So if I pick this and I said G, yeah, this one I can move around, but this one I can't. Is it because it's... like, I wonder if it's all the ones in the middle here are snapped to the middle. I guess that's it. I wonder what's causing that constraint. It must be because originally we had a mirror modifier, and so all the vertices that were along the middle were snapped to the middle. And I applied that mirror modifier, so we don't have the mirror modifier anymore, but there appears to still be some lingering side effect of it, which I don't love. But maybe somebody watching this in the future can explain how I got into this unfortunate state. But let's come around this side, and I think... okay, this is kind of annoying that I can't just move that. Like, I would like to just move this up, but it like messes up that geometry. I wonder if I can, let's see, I can pick these 3 edges, say F, or do I want to say these 2 edges, say F to fill, and then I want to like cut this edge in half. So I can say cut, enter. Or is it like split edge, subdivide, enter? Yes, great. So now I've added like a little quad here. So now we can start to like shape the side of this. And should I do that again with this part? Like I can select this face, or this edge and this edge, hit F to fill it in, F for fill, or I guess maybe F for face. You know, edge select mode, right click, subdivide, enter, and then we just pick this. I'm also gonna just like select everything and say clear seams for now to get those out of there. Also, right click, clear sharp. So now it should all be like smooth. So now I'm wondering if like I should just get rid of these faces. And then shape this. Yeah, I think I like that better. So now we can just shape these. Looking at it from the front. Oh, it's still mirroring. Oh, here it is. That's why it is. It's because I had this mirror option up here. Now I can move this wherever the heck I want. Excellent. Okay, so that's why these were changing on both sides. But so I think I need to do what I did before. This is annoying. It's probably a faster way to do this. Subdivide. Bring it down like that. Fill 2. Subdivide 1. Grab, pull that out. Now let's like pull these down on this side. Okay, now we're getting that like asymmetric look. It's a little wonky from the top, but that's easily fixable. So I think probably these on this side like really need to come down, right? I'm just using that like GG trick to slide along these seams to like really pull them in. Okay, I wonder if like this just needs to like, let's look back at the reference. Yeah, it actually is like kind of flat in the middle and then it pops up on this side. So this just needs to like totally come down to like here. And then, yeah, that's more the shape that we want. Yeah, and then these are like higher up. Okay, and then once again, these have gotten a little cattywampus from the top. So let's just make sure, I'm just making sure we have a nice silhouette that goes around from like here to here. I think that's pretty good. I do wonder if I want to basically add some geometry, like maybe cut from here to here. Just to make this a little more detailed where I want it to be. Okay, the last time I was on stream I made a mistake, which was to start, I think I called it vertex fucking, where I'm just like making the smallest moves to individual vertices when I've got like bigger fish to fry. And I think I'm doing it again. Whoops. But let me at least just come in here and like get all this stuff sort of moved down. Okay, so next thing, these like bolts here, I'm going to turn that back on. I think what I want to do is like select linked, and then actually what I want to do is I'm going to select this face, Shift S2 to move the pivot there. We'll select all the linked faces. I'm going to get rid of that seam limit. And then I think we can just scale this down. Here, let me see. I should be able to draw some of the that's what I want. I want us to be able to see some of the other topo. So this one, I'll pop this out. Then I also just want to make sure that it's like basically centered for when I adjust that. So I think I actually want this to be a lot smaller. Yeah, because I've got that mirror mode on, it's happening on both sides. I think actually I'm going to want it a little off-center because I'm just going to move those edges in. So I'm going to turn the mirror mode on for this. Let's do face select mode. I'm just going to get the middle of this face, so Shift S2. And then we're just going to scale in. We are scaling around the... Oh, we're scaling median the whole time. Oops. Well, that's the same difference. Now I just want to move this so that matches up with that. And then I think, okay, this is where it's going to get a little annoying, but let's see. I think I can select all these faces and shrink them in, and it's happening on the other side, right? Yeah. So what I think I actually want to do is, okay, so what I actually want to do is move this down, move this up, actually. That in, move this that way. Basically, I'm just trying to make this little bump smaller. It's like kind of gross and uneven, so maybe we'll clean that up just a little bit. So I'll just do it from this perspective and then fix it in another perspective in a second. Okay, I'm going to do, if I add an edge there, oh, it doesn't add it on the other side. I think that should be fine. I'm just going to temporarily add these edges so that I can pull these in. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Then what I do is I pick these edges, say X, dissolve. Oop, I was picking vertices. Pick these edges, dissolve them. What? Dissolve edge. They don't want to be dissolved. We have an issue. Okay, there they go. And then I think I can pick these. We can change our orientation mode to normal. Then I can say SC0 to make sure that's all nice and flattened out. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. There's like a little guy inside of here. We are just gonna, let's go back to local. Scale Shift X to make it like thinner. Pick this ring of edges, pull it out. Make sure it's basically, yeah, that's like probably the most unnecessary piece of detailing, but whatever. Okay, so I think that's okay. Pull this in a little bit to round off that corner. Maybe pull this in a little bit to round off that corner. Okay, so the next things that we need to do are this big kahuna on the bottom here also needs to be smaller. And then if we look, these had like a cover on the front here, but like these, it looks like it just kind of, the way I drew it, I don't know if this is a great idea because the wheels can also pivot, but I do think it's probably good if instead of having a front cover like this, it just kind of rounds off on the bottom as well. So let's come in here, go face select, Control, Shift, Control. Let's get rid of all those faces. And then I'm going to Control select here. We're going to sort of pull those out. And we've still got mirror editing on, so I can like do a little bit of shaping. And like maybe it's not that sharp point that I had, but it does come up like a bit. There we go. And then I think actually what I want to do is, here, let's come in here. I'm going to select these two rings. I'm going to say Shift S2 to get the pivot point that's in between those two rings. Then we're going to select this and this. We're going to go into pivot rotation mode. I just want to rotate this so it's like basically pointed down. Boop. More so than the other one. And then we've got this big dingus here, who you're just going to be smaller. Oop. let's do the trick again. Shift S2, everything scale around that point. This only needs to be like a little bit smaller. And I think the other thing about it is that it's like a little bit higher. So now let's move this other geometry similarly. I'm going to do the same trick I did earlier, where I fill in 2 edges. Just like you can like select edges and fill in a face, you can select vertices and fill in an edge between them. So it's still filling like the F hotkey. So now we can basically come in here and I can use G to slide along the surface, and that'll keep all of these vertices nice and planar. Let's look at this from the front. I took this one down a little too much. Let's undo. Okay. This is a much better perspective to be working from. So we can basically pull all those in so that's relatively even. And then I want to just adjust these a little bit to create like a better shape on the bottom there. What is that point? Is that just like a point in space? That's so weird. Cool. So we can look at this from the front again. Just doing some symmetric editing. So now if we look at this, and if I turn the wireframe off, relative to that, oop, what's going on there? Here, let me just delete those edges. Okay, that seems to fix whatever I was seeing there. But move that little orange dot out of here. So now we've got this reshaped in a way that I think is pretty good. Like these are a lot smaller and like this is a lot smaller. I do think there's too much of a bump around these, so I do wonder if I can make that a bit smaller. Make sure we've still got mirrored editing on. Pull all those in, and then I basically want to grab this whole thing here, just like yank it in a little bit. I want to grab this side, pull it in a little bit this way. And then naturally, these non-symmetric parts don't respect that, so cool. I think you could be moved out just a little bit. Great. I don't need to be like too precise, but I think that makes the bump a little bit smaller, which I think is good. It's not producing the greatest normals, but hopefully that'll look fine in game. What does that geo look like? I mean, geo isn't that bad. It's probably just like seen from the occasional angle here. Just needs to be cleaned up the smallest amount. Yeah, okay, that didn't really affect it that much, but all good. I do think it's sort of, yeah, actually, looking back here, is it the case that like there was only a bolt on this side and not on this side? Or like, and plus it looks like this kind of like peeks in a bit. I still think it makes sense for there to be two bolts, but I do think that like this looks so much better than what I got going on here. This is like a whole bunch of nothing. So like what we need is for this to come in a bit. So let's try that. So let me think here. These can all come down. This whole thing's gotta like go that way. So let me just, here, we'll just do like a bigger, I think I just need to, it's not pretty, but it gets the job done. Now let's fix up some of this stuff to make it look like more of a, like an apparatus that was meant to stick out this way. I wonder actually if this can just like connect right there. Or like this comes up like this. Then we control click down to there and just get rid of those faces. And then like pull everything more this way. This geometry sucks. Like, this should be, what should this be? Let's get rid of some of this topology. What is this? I want to go back to lo-fi. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Can I actually like get rid of these edges as well? Move these faces over. Just trying to think about how these edges flow. So like obviously this is like junk geo right now, but doing this kind of like low poly modeling is like a little bit like origami, where you're trying to figure out like the perfect mix of lines that just work. Let's see. Can sort of just bring all these over. Having this little like bump up here weird and annoying. I suppose here, let's try it. We could cut that way. We could get rid of these faces. I want to imagine what the geometry on the other side looks like right now. Just gotta focus on this. So that's kind of like flat, and then it comes around this way. Face select all these, change the orientation mode to normal, SC0, enter, flatten those out, G, Shift Z to move in the plane. And then I think what I can do is I can select, you can select this ring. There is like a 2-sphere modifier, so I think to do that I need to say Shift S2 to move that in the middle. We're going to pivot around. We can say 2-sphere, and then yeah, that'll make that into like a perfect circle. I think I might do that for these edges as well. So Shift S2 to move the pivot to the middle, F3. So we can just look up commands by name. We know the name is 2-sphere. It's Shift Alt S is the thing though. I should get in the habit of using hotkeys. Shift Alt S. Whoop. Shift Alt S. There we go. So now this is like, it's not the super regular, but like we can like adjust or whatever. But I think that's like pretty good. Oh, we've got some people in the chat. Cheap viewers on streambo.net. Definitely like the less topology and agree and move the center line of the bump. Stupid bot, go away. Yeah. One sec. Let me take some admin action. How do I do that? Report, spam. obvious spam. Block this user. Okay, sorry, Freckle Tie Up D G3S, you've been reported. That's what you get for spamming. Cool. So now I think I can pick all these. We're still in normal mode, right? So I can say RZ to rotate around their normal, and then just try and okay, what have we got here? Let's try and clean up some of these lines. It's not going to be perfect, but I can at least make it like as small as possible. Gotta run for work, keep streaming. I'll watch the VOD tonight. Yep, I usually put the VOD up immediately. It goes away after a week because I'm just like a plebeian user, but you can also find it on YouTube if that time's out. Thanks for watching Snapshot TV Tournament. Okay, I've been afraid to do this, but we do in fact, wait, this guy I think can move this way just a little bit. We can move that way just a little bit. You know what I'm actually going to do? I am going to just, maybe this will work. What if we picked all this geo inside of here and we dissolved it? Okay, we actually, I think we need to dissolve these vertices. I just want to make this like an n-gon. So those are all dissolved. I can select this whole face. I can say I to inset. Well, first we'll just say Shift S2 to go to the middle. Then we'll say Shift Alt S to make that into a more... the sphere is still kind of like cattywampus. But basically, we're going to come in here, we're going to even out all these points of it. And select this again, Shift S2, Shift Alt S. Okay, I think that's a better sphere shape, basically. We can like zhuzh it into place. I can say I to inset to get just like a perfect inset dingus, like that. And then I think all I want to do is do cross cuts. And then we can select this. Actually, do I even need those cross cuts? As long as we know that this is planar. I can say GZ to go out along the normal and just pull that forward a little bit. I think that's better. Now, look at this mess we created over here. Because we're doing all this like clean topology over here, but on the reverse side, boy, this is a nightmare. So I think first things first, we just need to get rid of all these vertices. Dissolve vertices. And what the hell is this guy? Okay, that's another vertice. This is what we want, right? Like these two sides connect with those two sides. There's 3 points. This one has 2 going down. Oh, right. And then we want to get rid of this strip. Yeah, and then this one has... yeah, so this side, it like cuts off right here, but this side, it goes up and around. So if I selected this and went back to median mode and just moved it around, yeah, that is actually synced up with the other side. I think what I'm going to do is, wait, if I dissolve this face, can't do that. If we dissolve these vertices, selected this, SE0 to make sure you're planar, SE0 to make sure you're planar. Okay, these guys are like in conflict with each other, but we'll just go back and forth a little bit. Something bad is happening right here. Oh, there's some extra geo to dissolve. Okay. What we actually want to do is dissolve this vertex. Great. So now those guys should be perfectly mirrored. So if I grab this, say like G, Shift, Z, yeah, we're moving both of them because the mirror matches up. So now I can select both of them and we can inset both of them at the same time. Now we have that same clean geo on both sides. And then if I pick this, because I'm in mirror mode, I say GZ, I get it on both sides. Incredible. Cool, so now we've got this little poppy outy shape. We've got the asymmetric shape, and this just comes around there. So now we just basically need to move this into place. Let me turn the wireframe visualization back on. Can move this right into the middle there. I think we can actually stick it out a little bit and rotate it from a few different angles to make sure it's basically matched up with that surface. Doesn't need to be perfect, just good enough. And then on this back side, there's this dingus, which we can go back to world coordinates and G, Shift X. G, yeah, Shift X should move me horizontally. What's wrong? Is it because... Wow, you're really offset from your origin. How did that happen? Well, so now we've got a problem where this is intersecting that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to isolate this. I'm going to basically just add 2 rings like that. And then, where is it going? There you go. This is fine engineering at its best. That looks stupid, but whatever. It's good enough. So I think now that this guy's up like this, it's sort of revealing some like curiosities about what's happening down here. So, whoop. Oh my goodness, I forget that numpad means different things in different contexts. Okay. Okay. I think that's pretty good. So the next thing we need to do is solidify this, which is basically going to make it solid like these pieces are. And then when we do that, we're also going to want to... Actually, these get pretty close there. I think... We're at medium mode. I think we can actually make those a little bigger. Just to compare it real quick. Yeah, this part's smaller, that part's smaller. Okay. I'm liking these two variants. Let's go ahead and solidify it. So, let's isolate this dingus. You're going to add a modifier here. This is, you can find this menu by selecting the object and then picking the little wrench that says modifiers. Modifiers are basically like a little function that will take what you've modeled as input and then produce a new mesh as output. So what solidify does is it pulls it in, right? So you can see we can toggle it. Another thing we're going to want to do is shade auto smooth. We'll just ignore sharpness for now, and we'll say 45 degrees. We can fix it up later. But so you can see basically what's happened is it's just made a copy of my mesh, pushed it in, and then connected all the boundaries with faces. So I think this is looking, let's see, how dense did I make that? Let's look at it in comparison to everything else. Yeah, that's like a good thickness. It's thicker than the other parts, but I think that's fine. So I think maybe 1.2 is enough. Is it? Yeah, I think it is. Let's make 1.3. Okay. So now, what you can do is, there's Control A while mousing over a modifier is apply. So boop, we applied it. So now we go in, and that's just all our geo. So now what we want to do on this inside is I actually don't want all of this extra geo for these like bumps, right? So what we're going to do is grab these extra edges on the inside and dissolve them. And then we're going to grab these vertices. Actually, let's look at it from the front and then reverse it. Actually, I'm going to go to a different view. I'm going to go this view so it's easier to see. And basically what we want to do here is just clean up this backside. Wait, why is that not mirroring? I have mirror on. Does it not think that these are mirrored points? That's so annoying. How did it come to this? I don't know. I'll just select both of them and scale for now. This doesn't have to be the best job in the universe, because nobody will ever see it, but it's nice to keep it clean. Okay, some of those mirrored correctly. It's just this area right here is a bit cattywampus. And I think the other thing we want to do is we just don't need all of this inner geometry. So I think I can just select this ring and say dissolve vertices. I can select this ring. I'm just control clicking around. Dissolve vertices. That simplifies that part. We still want it like going all the way around there. And then is there an easy way? I don't think there's a good way for me to create a clean geo on the inside, but I don't think we even really need it to be that clean on the inside. The last thing I want to do though is that this area up here got a little easy, it did a good job of generating it, but didn't do a great job. So we're just gonna grab some of these vertices and make them more precise. Makes it angle a little more nicely as it goes around. I still don't love it, but it's not there. Maybe it makes more sense for me to edit it from the top. There we go. It gets rid of a lot of the deeper crevices inside of there. We can go back to this view. It's pretty good. I'm gonna call that Dunzo. There's still some, I think this is just because it's generating sharp seams, right? Yeah. Just go and look at the gloss. The gloss will tell us if there's any really bad topology, but I think the gloss is pretty good from every direction. So I think we have successfully modeled the front leg as the alternative to the back leg. There they are next to each other. So you see there's two variants. It's pushed forward a little bit more, and the detailing on it is a little bit smaller. It doesn't have this lip on the bottom. It doesn't have this big part on the top. Its proportions are ever so slightly different. So they're not perfectly the same, but they're like very similar. So what we want to do now is rig it up. Actually, what we really want to do now is make sure we have a UV map. So I'm going to select everything here. We're going to go into UV editing. I want to make sure we've selected palette map or UV map for everything, because the palette map is fine, like all the colors are correct. Checking everybody, we are editing the UV map of everybody, excellent. Let's come in here. Let's just try it out. We can say unwrap. How did the UVs for this look? Now let's just unwrap it. Okay, these UVs aren't too bad. It looks like it cut it along the middle, so we have the left side, we have the right side, and then we have this side. I do think we want to... here's one trick that we can do. I can say... select, oh, not object name, but I think what we can do is we can say select sharp. Select all the sharp edges. Then I can right click and I can say mark seam. So those are all seams, and then we can find all these places and say clear seam. We can pick these, say mark seam. Now I'm just going through, making sure we have UV seams in all the meaningful places. We don't want a seam right there. We don't want a seam right there. Like, putting seams on all the sharp edges is like a good initial step. You don't need seams going around there. Don't need a seam there. But I think we do want basically from here to here to be a seam. And we want from here to here. And then it will be from here down to there. And they come around the bottom. We don't need so many cuts here. Clear these seams, but we do want to mark this seam. There's a bunch of internal seams that are unnecessary here. Oof. So I think that's a good, oh, yeah, it's probably fine to have a seam right there. Oh, there's so many seams on top here now. We can go from there to there. We can say F3 unwrap. Now we've got it a little bit better. We've got one texture map for the whole front face. Oh. Oh no, one texture map for the whole back. And then the front was cut. I think the back, it might be good to put a big seam down the middle here. So mark seam, unwrap. Yeah, so all these seams look pretty good. Mark seam there. Actually, I don't want there. This was like a weird line that it picked. You want to go from there to there. So seams are just cuts in the texture space. We say unwrap, and here we go. So there's the front, there's the sides, there's the backs, and then here's just a bunch of little strips for all these things. You could like go and noodle, but like I'm not actually like, usually you want these seams to be like nice up and down, like especially if you're like hand painting or like doing fat pixel textures. But I'm only going to be using this for baking from substance, so it doesn't really matter. But it is good to, like, I wonder if this could just move that way a little. No, I'm overthinking it. So now we can pop out of here, we can pick everything, edit everything, F3, unwrap it all. There we go. Now we have an unwrap of all the bits. So we have texture maps on this that we can use for baking. We have the palette map, which like just worked because it was just respected while I was editing, which is part of what's nice about the palette map. And then now what we want to do is we want to rig it up. So we're already in object mode, so I'm going to add, it's called an armature. I'll say single bone. Actually, first things first, we want to say Shift S, cursor to world origin, because we want to start a rig right at the origin. So Shift A for add, single bone, and then we are going to call this front leg rig, because this was back leg rig, right? Yeah. So then we're going to grab all these pieces, and then we're going to control, well, first things first, we want to move this into the same group. Shift select everything, unselect, and then basically control click. So you can like multi-select in Blender, but one thing is always the like active selection is like more selected than anybody else's. When you're parenting, you want to select everything, but you want the active selection to be what you're parenting to. So then control P, and we want to say armature to form with empty groups. Now let's just press tab to edit our armature here. And so here's what we're going to do. Actually, before I edit this, let me see what this rig looked like. So I had, let's look at our bones. I had limb 1, limb 2, limb 3, wheel bracket, and then wheel. So let's do everything with the exact same names. Limb 1, limb 2, limb 3, wheel. So we can hide this dingus. And let's actually go back. Let's go to the layout view. I think layout's a nicer place to do the rigging from. So before I edit this bone, first things first, I want to come in here. I want to say Shift S2 to move the pivot there. You'll see why in a second. We're going to come in here, this bone, and we're now limb 1. I'm going to select the tip of the bone. I'm going to say Shift S, selection to cursor, so Shift S8. And you see what happens there, and this will be more obvious if I render this in front, is that I've moved this bone to align perfectly with this joint right here. So I don't need to like futz with it and figure out exactly where it goes. I can just do it exactly. And we can come out here, Shift S2 to move our cursor there. We can edit this again. We can say E, pull this out, Shift S8, snap it, and then we're going to call this bone limb 2. And the next thing, I guess we're gonna, I think I want to have the next bone be right in between the top of this bracket. So we're going to go into the bracket here. I'm going to isolate it so that's easier to see. I'm going to select these two rings. I'm going to say Shift S2 to get a point that's perfectly in between those two rings. We're going to pop out of here. We're going to pop back in here. I'm going to select the tip here. I'm going to say E for extrude to extrude a new bone. I'm going to say Shift S8, and now this is perfectly in between those brackets. And then we can pop out of here. We can pop into here on this wheel. I can do like face select. I can pick these two faces and get the point that's directly in the middle there. Pop out, pop in, come here, E, pull it out, Shift S, 8, boom. Now we've got it there. And I think the last one was say EY to pull it out forward. And I think what I did was I matched this up so that it matched the wheel. Cool. That's how, like, in-game, I can always just use that bone to be like, what's the radius of my wheel? Without having to, like, know anything else about it. So now you're looking at this, you might see these are all little cattywampus. They're like, they're swinging in the right direction, but they're all twisted up a little. We can get rid of that twist. I'll press N to pull this out here. And now you can see, yeah, this one is like 5.4. Get rid of it. Roll is their name for like the twisting along the bone. We just want to zero out all the rolls that got introduced while we were extruding. The reason for that roll is like, as you're like pivoting it around, it's like accumulating a twist. You know, it'll make sense if you like think about, you know, it's called holonomy technically, but you know, if you walk down from the North Pole and then turn left and then turn right and come back up, you see how you induced a rotation? That happens anytime you're just like arbitrarily swinging an object. It will slowly induce a twist. That was a thing that we had to deal with in a game I worked on called Solar Ash, which had like wild changing gravity, which meant that the character was constantly inducing holonomy, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to like point the camera in particular directions. Math aside. So now all we basically want to do is, oh, I need to get, what were the names of those other bones? It was root, limb 1, limb 2, limb 3, wheel, bracket, and then wheel. So let's hide this again. This is limb 1. You are limb 2. You are limb 3. You are wheel, bracket. And then you are wheel. So the last thing we want to do is basically, because you can see I can control, I'm going to press N to hide that little fly out editor. You can see I can hit Control Tab to go into pose mode. And as I rotate these bones, well, it actually looks like things were like mostly picked up correctly. Maybe they're like a little, yeah, they're like a little cattywampus. Actually, they're surprisingly good. Okay. Oh, you know what I bet it is? Oh, this is so cool. They had all the weight painting from when I did this, from when I had a rig before. And because I used the same names for all the bones, all the weights just match up. That's so cool. Wait, so I can, you can come out here. We can hide this. We can select everything. We can tab in. And then if I go to modeling mode, and then we look at vertex weights. Yeah, that's so cool. I think, let me just at least go through here real quick and make sure. I don't know what bone is, but let's just get rid of bone on all of these objects. Boop. 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 Can I edit multiple at the same time? If I said boop, okay, it only edits the active selection. There. It's more logical for me to go through with the outline view so I know I don't miss anything. Boop. Boop. Awesome. So if I like look at this thing we did all of our normal work with here, okay, so yeah, it is all on limb 3, right? Blue is like nothing, red is like full weight. So nothing on wheel, nothing on limb 1, nothing on... Yeah, okay, that's actually cool. This is so much, I'm so used to Maya, where like you skin something and then you try and edit it at all and the skin just gets totally messed up. Blender is so much better for skinning. Oh, I just wish the bone orientations imported into Unreal without being weirdo. But what can you do? I think the last thing I want to do is... Here, I'm going to turn off vertex group weights. I think for this bad boy, we go back to modifiers. I still have this smooth by angle, so we're going to apply that. And then I want to come in here. I just want to make sure that everything... Here, how do I visualize? I turn edge marks off. I just want to know where it's marked sharp. Why is it showing seams? How do I get it to not show me seams? Bones, motion pass, annotations. What does overhang mean? That's interesting. I should learn what mesh analysis means. Oh, here it is. Okay. It was here all along. I don't want to see the seams. I just want to see where it was marked as sharp. And yeah, this will be easier in this view. So it's not sharp all along there. I think maybe we do want it. Let's go to edge select. I think we do want it to be sharp right here. So we're going to make that sharp. And then I think we also want it to be sharp here. But everywhere else is good. Okay. Classy. Classy. Classic. I think the last thing we gotta do is just to export. So actually, let me check my notebook. Last time I was exporting, I had to use very peculiar settings, and I learned that the settings reset themselves. So, sorry, I'm just going on my, this might, okay, you know what, we're just going to reinvent this from first principles. I'm going to export, import, we're going to see what's messed up, and then I'm going to fix that. I'm going to do my best guesses. This is just, you're just getting a peek into the whole game development process. A lot of tech art stuff is trial and error. So basically, let's make sure that rig is visible. We're going to say file export FBX. I'm just in my desktop right now, so we're just going to call this skeletal mesh. In Unreal, you usually say SK underscore to indicate a skeletal mesh. This is just because like Unreal files all have the U asset extension, so we use prefixes as though they're like file type extensions. It's so annoying. But I just call this front leg. I guess I'll say tank front leg. And then let's look at the extra options here. So we only want visible objects. We want, I think I've tried this before and it hasn't mattered. But I mean, I do want X forward, Z up. I think FBX is right-handed by default though, so it's like kind of weird. Geometry, I think this is all fine. Though sometimes you may want to like triangulate the faces. But animation, there was, yeah, armature. I think the primary bone axis is X. We want X to be forward. And I think the secondary bone axis is not, I thought that would be up, but it's actually the one to the right, which in Unreal is the y-axis. In Unreal, it's X is forward, Y is to the right, Z is up. So XY is like a flat plane, like a flat horizontal plane, and then Z is height. And it's left-handed, so you know if your thumb is the Z-axis and you're pointing in the X-axis, your fingers curl towards the Y-axis. And then I think I'll add leaf bones. This is not like necessary for Unreal, but I think it doesn't matter. Yeah, export FBX. Now we can come into the engine here. I'll hit F10 to show all my doodads. Let me make this maybe a little bit bigger. And then I can pick one of these legs. I can do the little folder button to like hot swap into the folder where this stuff is. And then, oh, that's interesting. I've got some stuff was never submitted. Mark for add. Great. Now let's just right click, say import. From the desktop, we want SK tank front leg. And then we don't need any scale or anything. We do not want to apply it to an existing skeleton. We want it on a new skeleton. And then let's say import, see what happens. Okay, so it brought some stuff in. That's the physics asset. It's the texture, which we're not going to need. Skeletal mesh, skeleton. Let's look at the skeletal mesh. So here we go. It's brought in. It's pointed in the right direction. And I think, yeah, this is the thing that's always annoying. All these bones are correct, right? Their x-axis is pointing in the right direction, their y-axis is pointing to the right. But like the root, it's always messed up. Somebody, because like you don't actually add a root bone in Blender, so the armature object itself is functionally the root bone. But it's like, there's no orientation settings for it, so it's like always friggin' sideways. I think maybe I just need to like author the rigs sideways in Blender, and then they'll import oriented correctly, but I don't know. It seems wrong. It's very frustrating. But like the root bone is always just turned 90 degrees. This X should be pointed forward, but instead it's pointed to the right. I can account for that in the like animation programming. It's just annoying to be like, and here's one more thing that can go wrong. If you forget about it, it adds nothing. It's just more cognitive overload. Okay, I think one thing that's like really obvious just from looking at this here. By the way, we can we can go to, yeah, here we go. I have a tank material. So we can actually come in here and we can assign, because it's using the same material as the other tank parts. Yeah, I do think that like not covering up the front here reveals that like basically there's some like more doodads that I might want to like add to this model inside of there. But I'm like learning so much making these models. I kind of want to redo it by the time I'm done with it. So who knows? But we can save that. Boop. I think what we can do is I can now I have the blueprint for the limb. So we can open up this blueprint. We can find it. I can right click. I can say create child blueprint class. And say underscore front leg. So then here is the back leg dingus. We can replace SK back leg with SK tank front leg. Boop. I think actually it sucks that we have that box, but I can like, I'll figure out the collision. All my collision is temp anyway. For now I can just disable collision. Just say no collision on that little extra bit. Then we can come in here to our tank. I can right click and then say, here wait, I want to select this. I want to say replace. There is a replace selected actors with front leg. Right click, replace selected actor with front leg. And then the other thing we need to do is these legs are now asymmetric. So this one needs to have, I can say, hey, I want to do non-uniform scale. I think your y-axis needs to be flipped. So there we go. Now we've got the front legs. They've been replaced. I think what's nice about this like asymmetric look is that even though they're facing forward, they still mirror these, right? Like this has a curve that comes up like this, and this has a curve that comes up like that. I can probably do some revisions on them or whatever, but also, why are they not touching the ground? That's weird and annoying. Oh, what are those legs doing? Something quite bad is happening in my animation code. I think I need to something needs to be accounted for. But yeah, we can come in here. I can turn rotation snapping on, so I'm gonna just go like up 5 degrees. Yeah. Okay, it looks like I have some like animation programming to figure out why they are like offset incorrectly. I also still need to do animation programming so that these wheels like swivel and rotate as the character moves around. I haven't programmed that yet, but yeah, this guy is looking, it's so close. We've just got one more piece to do. We've just got that chassis and this will be done. So we'll do that next week. I'll debug this programming problem because that will not make for great streaming. But yeah, it's been about 2 hours, so I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it. Thanks for watching. The game is Nightshift Galaxy. You can basically Google that, just one word, Nightshift. Nobody ever thought to portmanteau it before, so I accidentally am easy to find with search engines. There's also just a link in this Twitch chat, or if you found us on YouTube, there's a link from the YouTube account. It's like an anime mecha action shooter arcade game that I'm slowly but surely working on. You can wishlist it on Steam. That definitely helps a whole bunch. I'm sorry I can't promise any release dates yet because it is just me working on the game, and I'm only working on it part-time now because I had to pick up some work to pay the rent. But I'm still committed to it. So I try and do this every Friday around lunchtime Pacific time, so either noon or 1 o'clock PST. And yeah, okay. I never know how to say goodbye, so I'll just say bye. Bye.